Well, happy Sunday, everybody. I hope you all had a great Easter. This is student forecaster Stephen Boyle for Northeast Weather Center. Well, basically, in my videos, what I'll be doing is I'll be covering the entire country, but I will be basically still having a primary focus on the Northeast. But now, what we'll do is we'll sort of see how certain things could affect that are in other portions of the country, how this could potentially affect the Northeast. So, we'll give you the basic overview of what's going on across the country, and still give you try to give you a more focused Northeast forecast. So you won't still have to deal with, oh, in this section of the country, this is. I mean, you will still hear that, but you'll still get a very direct forecast still. So don't need to worry about that. Okay, so in Texas, there is still some severe weather going on, severe thunderstorms going on down there. But for the and we do have a lake effect snow watch. Some of these guys could be seeing close to a foot of snow into some areas, so we'll have to kind of keep our eyes on that tomorrow. As the front moves by, we'll get some winds coming down like this off the lake, and again with the temperatures that we're gonna have, and with the temperatures are on the lake, it's gonna be a perfect setup for some great lake effect snows for people who live into sections of New York. So that's why there is a lake effect snow watch out there. We do have a little bit of rain affecting these folks, particularly Massachusetts, Connecticut, portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey. We also have some severe, like I said, there's some weakening thunderstorms across portions of Georgia and Alabama this evening. Also a winter weather advisory into the UP of Michigan. Now, here is the basic analysis, surface analysis. We'll move on to right now because that's what everybody wants to know. Here is the front. You can see the very cold flow behind it. So basically, that's going to continue to move east, and that is what's going to be causing folks in central New York to possibly be, or upstate New York, to possibly see a good snow event. Here is the rains that is starting to affect portions of the Northeast, and you'll see a more updated radar imagery in just a couple seconds. Here is the frontal system that's kind of creating some severe weather down here, and we are watching an area of low pressure that's starting to enter into portions of the west, California, that could start kind of coming down and may affect parts of the Northeast, possibly by early next weekend. Alright, so here again is that low pressure system. Some of those rains are starting to already come in here, and you can see some more back out in here. So, we'll have to watch the exact track. But again, we don't really need to really keep a major focus until it starts coming down here into portions of Texas. Here is the frontal system that is right now moving through, and you can see some pretty nasty storms, particularly into these areas. Very major storms down here. Some hail, some damaging winds. There's even been some reports of tornadoes. There is a weakening batch of thunderstorms that is down into portions of central Alabama. Heavy rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder. Also some heavy rain down in here into portions of North Carolina and South Carolina. And again, is this going to affect the Northeast? Probably not, because basically that is moving in an easterly direction. This, though, is what's affecting the Northeast. And actually, I'm going to update your radar imagery. And basically, here's what's going on. You can see that there is right now a pretty big dry slot in through Massachusetts, northern Connecticut, northern Rhode Island. But what's happening here is we are getting some rain bands that are forming now near New York City. This is all going to move northward. And basically, because we have our frontal system, this is forcing this to the east. So as this moves north, this is moving east. So basically, this is kind of wrapping around like this and kind of coming up like that. So we'll loop this and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Notice how this is kind of moving eastward because of the front. It's moving north, but it's moving also east as well. Notice how it's going around as well, and it's kind of feeding into here, kind of creating more banding. So therefore, these guys in here who are having some dry stuff right now, not really much, will eventually see some additional rains. We did have a band of rain that did move through a good chunk of the region just a little while ago, but again, this area of rain will kind of move east, northeast, so probably move something like this. So it will most likely affect everybody from Massachusetts up into Maine and New Hampshire. And then this batch is definitely moving out into the Cape and the islands where they could get some very, very heavy rain. Notice some, maybe even a few rumbles of thunder. Wouldn't be surprised if some people reported a little bit of thunder with that. Alright, so here is, we're going to update this because the for some reason it says 7:45, but it's right now around 9 o'clock. So, but again, let's just look at this. Here is our batch of thunderstorms in Texas. Here is our front that's kind of moving through this region. We kind of have two fronts, one in here and then another one in here. This front here, it's kind of associated with our low pressure system that's kind of in here. It's kind of weird. We got a warm front and our low pressure is in here, and the low pressure is kind of gonna move like this, kind of something like this, and then our main front is in here, and our main low pressure that's causing this warm front and cold front is right in here. So basically you got our cold air behind it. So there's going to be a little bit behind this area of low pressure in here. There's going to be a little bit of cold air that rides behind it. But for the most part, all of our cold air is going to be behind this front in here, and that's basically where all of our Arctic air is going to come. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. But so that's basically what's going on. All right, looking at the NAM, we'll look at this at the surface and also at the jet stream pattern. And basically here is that rain that's moving through, and you can see, and then of course you can see there is the little low pressure system that we kind of have to keep our eyes on. And again, there could be some pretty severe thunderstorms down into Florida. So if you're planning on vacationing down there midweek, if you know anybody, there could be some pretty nasty storms that strike Florida, because you see this little area of energy down in here, and actually a little low pressure system is going to start forming. That's the reason why we have this big blob of energy that all of a sudden pops up, is because there's lowering pressures in here. And therefore, what's going to happen is this, as those pressures lower, more clouds, more unstableness in the atmosphere. Therefore, we produce some more thunderstorms. And because this area of the country is kind of warm and juicy, we get thunderstorms that pop up. And basically, these will move east. And again, this is going to kind of move in a northeasterly direction. It could also move something like this. Again, the exact movement of this upcoming low pressure system is still unknown. All right, so here's a jet stream pattern. And again, this was from earlier on today. So again, the first couple of this is basically from these 2 hours here, basically earlier today. Basically what we want to look at is basically 1 a.m. and you can still see the flow coming in here in this particular direction. Basically we have our low pressure here. Our front is kind of like this. So basically our cold air coming in from Canada is behind our front, which is in here. And you'll notice this front really becomes quite noticeable. You can sort of see here is our low pressure. Here is our main front. You can see our winds coming in from Canada, and that's what's going to basically be causing temperatures to be much colder on our Tuesday and Wednesday, because here's Monday afternoon. Notice the flow coming in from the southeast. So basically, this keeps temperatures quite warm. And again, the front is situated somewhere in here, because we also it's more in here, because you got the cold air coming in like this. You still have a warm flow in here. So basically, all these guys will be on the warm side. And then, of course, we move on through Tuesday afternoon and look at the major difference. Look at the major difference. You can see this flow coming out of Canada. So all of this means that these folks in here are going to be very, much colder. And here's that little surface low that we're going to have to watch. What's going to happen here is this is going to kind of move down. There's also going to be kind of some energy that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. What's going to happen here is basically you have this little low pressure. This kind of, because we have this little low out in here, it kind of produces a little bit of thunderstorm and rain activity down in here, and basically the low that we need to watch for folks that could impact folks up into the Northeast. It's generally coming in from the southern stream. This is kind of going to add fuel to the fire, and basically transfer its energy down into the Gulf of Mexico. It's this little low is going to weaken, and you can start seeing some lowering pressures, and some lowering pressures off the coast of Florida, right in here, or actually off the coast of Alabama. And that's where we have to watch, and that's basically where our low pressure is going to come from. So that's the NAM. Then we look at the Euro. We're again going to look at the surface map and our jet stream pattern. All right. Now, so basically, here's that first low pressure system. All right, and again, we have to watch this little area of low pressure and watch how this forms in the Gulf of Mexico. All right, watch. Okay, this is what happens. Okay, you can sort of see there's the energy that's coming in from the south. All right, we get a major band of storms that, or line of storms that's eyed toward Florida. That's the reason why I said make sure you watch out if you know anybody who's planning on vacationing in Florida by midweek next week. Now you can start seeing these lowering pressures down in here. All right, and you'll eventually see a clearly defined low pressure system. All right, and that's when basically on Thursday afternoon, according to the Euro, is when we get a clearly defined low pressure. All right, and again, it forms right off the coast of Alabama. Again, basically Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. And that's where we have to keep our eyes. All right, and what happens from there is getting a little bit more known, but it's still a little bit unknown. How close to the Northeast this comes to these folks that I just circled, actually these folks, will be a big mystery. Okay, how much blocking do we have up in here? Okay, this actually indicates a high pressure system. All right, is this high pressure that's up in here, is this going to be any further south? Is this going to be further north? Okay, what's going to happen? Okay, now also you can notice that there's still some cold air trying to come down at the same time. However, this low is kind of got some warm air with it. Remember, you basically have a flow off the ocean right now, because of the because of the counterclockwise flow that low pressures have. All right, and you can sort of see that this low pressure is kind of pushing the warm air northward and pushing this colder air to the north. However, it's still forcing the storm south of New England. Now, the timing that this would affect if it were to come a little bit more northwestward would be kind of interesting, especially for people in interior sections of the Northeast. All right. It would be coming in at a time around Friday evening, Saturday morning. If that were the case, then we could be potentially talking about maybe a little bit of snow, not significant, but maybe some snow for these folks that I just shaded in. Probably more rain than anything. But if we did see snow, it would probably accumulate on the trees and stuff like that and on the grassy surfaces. But it would be kind of interesting to see if this moved any more northward, because again, look at the time that this is basically, this is around us, 7 in the evening, and temperatures are starting to drop at this particular point. So if this does affect us, it would be coming in around the time that, it would be the best for any accumulating snow, but chances of that happening are very minimal. Now, as this storm exits, okay, what we're going to be watching is an area of high pressure that's going to build in the southeast. All right, whoops, didn't mean to do that. All right, now, we have an area of high pressure that's building in here, okay, and that is very significant. All right, why is it so significant? Because we're remember, highs have have a clockwise flow. Lows have a counterclockwise flow. Highs have a clockwise flow. And with the clockwise flow that the highs give, this would be bringing in air from the Gulf of Mexico. And again, the air in the Gulf of Mexico is very warm and very juicy. And this has it pointing right towards the northeast. Okay? Now, if you look at the actual surface temperatures that are being outputted by the models, they're not as high as you would think they are. For me, I think our first 70-degree day could, for many of us, will be coming by next upcoming Sunday. And again, we will have to sort of see with that, and there could be a little brief frontal system that moves through. But again, because we're going to have such a big dominance of this high pressure, it'll still be forcing in some fairly warm air into this. Now, the question is are we going to see this little area of low pressure forming in the Midwest? Because if this moves eastward, then basically what would happen is these folks would be kind of kept cooler because of the rain and the precipitation, particularly New England and southern New England, and also northern portions of the mid-Atlantic. However, this would areas that would be all sun, well, guess what? You would be getting pretty darn warm. And again, here you go. Okay, here is that low pressure system. You can see it's moving right through portions of Pennsylvania. But notice, if this low pressure doesn't happen, then this would allow warmer air to kind of move in. And there's another little area of low pressure or energy that's moving through. Again, we got to still see what happens. Again, could we stay all sun into these regions? It's possible. All right, so here is the basic jet stream pattern. You can see there's tonight or overnight hours. You can see there's tomorrow. Basically, tomorrow afternoon, you can still see that flow coming in from the southeast. Basically, our frontal system is in here. We have colder air coming in from the northwest, from the northwest, and that's coming in from Canada. Basically, that basically tells you have a frontal system. All right, so now we see that front moving through, and you can clearly see there's a front that's moving through. And basically behind that, you have a flow coming out of Canada. And again, you have cooler conditions in Canada, so that's to be expected. And as we move on, you can sort of see here is that little area of, now we focus our attention down here for on our next system. Okay, here is the energy that's starting to build with the area of low pressure that we're watching. It's in here that we're going to have to watch. Again, we have a little surface or a little low pressure feature down in here, but what we got to watch is really in here, because we have lower pressures in here, and basically energy from the southern stream. So this will most likely tap into that energy and create a nice area of low pressure, and you can see that. Okay, and basically we get a low pressure system, and again, it looks like it basically rides south of New England. Now again, there could be a little surface feature, but look at this. Notice how we get our flow coming in from the west. Okay, now particularly as we move on, this flow really starts to get more angular. Notice after this, notice how we start getting some higher pressures back in here. Okay, and it really gets more and more noticeable. Notice how we have a big old area of high pressure in here. We have a serious flow coming in from Mexico. All right, the flow, so you're getting basically a flow from Mexico into basically the eastern half of the country. What is this signifying? This signifies some pretty warm temperatures for these guys. So if you live in the Northeast, I would expect by early next week you're going to get into some very warm temperatures. And let me tell you something. I would not at all be surprised if portions of the Northeast saw their first 80-degree day by possibly the second week of April. So we're going to basically jump right into spring here, and things are going to get rapidly warm. So that's what it's looking like to me. Now, finally looking at the GFS. All right. Okay. So looking at the GFS, we're going to look at the surface map. We're going to look at the general jet stream pattern. Hold on a minute. Let's see. What was I? Okay. Jet stream pattern, and then we're also going to look at the surface temperatures. All right. And here we go. All right. So again, there's that little low pressure system that moves out. Okay, then again, our eyes focus on this little storm. All right, that's coming down, and again, it taps into that Gulf of Mexico energy. And just look at this. I mean, this is some serious thunderstorm activity. I mean, look at that. I mean, in a 6-hour period, I mean, you're talking, some areas are talking almost 4 to 5 inches of rain. Again, that's offshore, but again, that's still some very serious energy there. So, again, all of this is eyed towards Florida, and that's a very serious concern because, like I said, these guys are getting some very warm temperatures, and with that being said, that definitely puts a high concern for the potentials of severe weather down into portions of central Florida. So, like I said, if you're going to be vacationing there between Thursday and Friday, I would definitely monitor future forecasts. And again, notice how the GFS sort of brings this storm kind of to the north. It sort of, it sort of skirts New England. But what's interesting with the GFS is it kind of has some cooler air sticking around in the Northeast, and it doesn't really bring in the warmer air until next Sunday evening. So we'll have to kind of watch out for that. But for the most part, I mean, you can sort of see that, you get maybe a little bit of scattered rain shower activity. But what I generally want to show you here is notice our southeastern ridge. That is really important because when you have a southeastern ridge, that basically means that you're going to get into some very warm weather. And again, there could be a frontal system or two that move through, but even after that, it warms right back up. Why? Because again, we still have this southeastern ridge, and that's the main vocal point of what we want to show you here. Is if you have a southeastern ridge, it doesn't matter how many fronts that move through, you're going to get that ridge moving back to the east and bringing in more of a warm flow to the north. Alright, so now here's the jet stream pattern, and again, alright, there's your frontal system that moves through. Alright, and again, there is our system that we're going to be watching down into the south. Okay, there again is the energy that's starting to build down in here. Okay, what we have is we have the energy, the southern stream energy, and then you have a little bit of a low pressure feature that's right in here, lower pressures. Again, this energy is most likely going to tap into this lower pressure is going to probably most likely tap into this energy and therefore create a nice low pressure system. Okay. So there you go, and again, you can see that it taps into that energy, creates a low pressure system, and again, the bulk of the energy stays to the south. But what this shows here is we have a little bit of a northern stream energy, and it might tap into that and therefore create some precip into the northeast. But again, for the most part, as you move along through, you can generally see the basic flow, and this is what I basically want everybody to notice. All right, notice how this flow is coming in like this from Texas and New Mexico. Now, guess what? And also what I want you to notice is that we have this very vigorous trough out in the west. All right, this definitely signifies a very interesting pattern for the East Coast. All right, what this indicates is that we're going to have a very deep trough. I mean a very deep trough in the west. And what this is going to create is, well, these guys all in here are going to get pretty warm. All right, that's what happens when you have a southeastern ridge. All right, you have a high pressure in here, and with the clockwise flow, it brings in warm air to basically the eastern half of the country, and that's what we basically have right here. And these folks, like I said, I would not be surprised if a lot of people get into the 70s into the northeast from basically actually, I think portions of Virginia may see their first 90-degree day within the next several weeks. I think portions of South Jersey potentially could be reaching their first 80-degree day within the next several weeks. And I think a lot of New England, particularly southern New England down to New York City, in the next several weeks will see their first 70-degree day. I think 80s would not be out of the realm of possibilities for folks who live from Philadelphia to Boston. I really wouldn't be surprised if 80s were to break out into those regions. And I'll even show you surface temperature. Okay, so we'll get rid of these. Here's surface temperature, and basically there is the highs tomorrow. What I'm basically going to show you is we're going to kind of move really much forward. This is next Saturday. Next Sunday, okay, this is when things start warming up, okay. Notice how we have some very warm weather down into the south, and I want you to notice the very, very warm air in Texas. As we get this high that starts building out in here, this is, and when we have this warm air coming in like this, it's going to be very important that these temperatures are very, very warm in Texas. What this is going to mean for these folks in here is higher temperatures, because these temperatures are really high. I mean, some of these folks in here are getting near 130 degrees. It's really some serious warmth down in there. Okay, and just notice that these 70-degree temperatures ride up into portions of New Jersey. That, again, signifies very warm weather into these areas. Now, here we go. So here's the surface temperature here. You can see, I mean, there you go. 70, 75-degree temperatures for a good chunk of eastern Pennsylvania. moving on, you can see those temperatures are still very warm. I mean, for the most part, I think we're in a pattern here. We're going to start getting into a pattern here where high temperatures are going to basically become a very common phenomenon. So what am I generally trying to say here? As I mentioned yesterday, I think we're going to start seeing some very warm conditions. I think we can start expecting some 70-degree temperatures, 60-degree temperatures, definitely. So get ready for spring and maybe even into some sections summer. So that's generally what I'm looking at here right now. Again, it would be by about mid-month, by about the third week of April, that we'll really start getting into this heat. But again, we still have several weeks to watch it. But for right now, that's what it's looking like. And you know, we again still have several weeks to kind of fine-tune things. So that's what it's looking right now. I hope you all have a great rest of your Easter, and we'll be back for another update tomorrow. Take care, everyone.